An oasis between America's amber waves of grain, peppered with picture-perfect parks and built for the bustling life in the Bakken. There's never been a better time to live in the city of Minot. Beyond its natural beauty, the city of Minot is renowned for safe communities and a growing footprint. The city continues to invest in these communities and in the future by restoring miles of pipes and roadways, leveraging state and federal dollars and other partnerships to build up our bridges, improve our quality of life, and revitalize our business districts, all of which is making the city of Minot a more resilient, vibrant, and safe city. Our law enforcement has built a community perfect for any family or any person to call home.
455.
The fire department invests time and effort into fire safety and prevention. In fact, the city of Minot is investing millions to protect residents from all types of risks and dangers, ensuring continued growth and future prosperity. Pair all of this with highly rated schools, parks, successful businesses or developments, and it still doesn't scratch the surface of what Minot has to offer. Name a career. It's here. The economy in Minot is diverse and active, and it allows for nearly any career path for the striving professional. Our neighbors to the north, the Minot Air Force Base, plays a key role in this for our city by luring highly skilled individuals from all over the nation. The best truly do come north. The area is most commonly known for the energy and agriculture sectors. These keystones help to recruit and retain a dynamic workforce and remains a major driving force for the rest of the local economy. A major university, a regional hospital, and the ever-expanding private sector continues to blossom and yields bigger and better opportunities year after year. Here in the Magic City, the sky is the limit. While Minot has a great professional atmosphere, things still can get pretty wild. Flush with entertainment and loads of recreational opportunities, there's rarely a dull moment. From arts to dining, shopping, or our all-season activities, letting loose is simple. Just a short drive to several lakes and you're one with nature. The hunting is robust. Golf, well above par. And even when the temperature falls, the fun never hibernates. Traditions are a pillar for our community. Thousands collect in Minot each year for our major events. It's the home of the North Dakota State Fair, the Norsk Höstfest, rodeos, craft shows, the beautiful symphony, the Nodak Speedway, and dozens of all types of events bring people in droves to our community. When it comes to entertainment, Minot really does knock this out of the park. In Minot, family is the foundation, traditions are our treasure, and business is booming. That's allowed us to build a safe, healthy, and vibrant community. Just look around. It's truly easy to see why Minot continues to bring only the best north and is the ideal place to live, work, play, and stay.
Hello, everybody. Jen here from the City of Minot Public Information Office. Today is day 2 of 3 in our virtual question and answer sessions. Today, we will be featuring our public safety departments in fire and police. Our goal in these question and answer sessions is to connect our residents with our department leadership. So you get to ask those questions directly. We have the chat box up here on the side. You fill in your questions at any point, and we can hop over to that chat box. But even more than that, I encourage you to engage with our city council leadership. I'm going to throw our schedule up here. We have a lot of upcoming council meetings that are important to the budget discussion. Council contact information can be found on our website at minotnd.gov. Also on our website, you can find that building a budget page. It's right there on the first page when you sign on. That will include everything that's brought us to this point in the budget discussion, including priorities and directive from council, presentations and videos from every department, and again, contact information for any questions that you may have in the future. So let's go ahead and introduce today's question and answer folks. Bring y'all up here on the screen. Hello. All right, so we have Minot City Manager Harold Stewart, if you just want to give us a wave. Finance Director David Lakefield. And then our department chiefs are our people of the half hour here. Fire Chief Kelly Kronschnabel. And Police Chief John Klug. So we're going to start with our chiefs, and we actually had we'll get the video figured out here. Sorry about that. So we're going to start with our chiefs. We had phoned a friend who offered to be here to help with some fleet questions. So we're going to start in a little bit of an unconventional way. We're going to talk about vehicles right off the bat. Our fleet management superintendent, Chuck Schmidt, he has a new position. He's kind of in his data collection era, but he offered to come in and offer some insight on some strategies that he's looking at for long-term fleet management. But to this point, our chiefs have been managing those fleets and very specialized vehicle collections that they both have. So we're going to start with you, Chief Kelly. Just talk to us a little about miles and maintenance, gaps in the fleet, timelines for ordering these specialized vehicles, and just kind of give us a frame of reference on what these vehicles cost. I've never shopped for a fire truck, so I imagine that's quite an adventure. So we'll start with you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for having us today. And so miles and maintenance, we actually don't look at more hours. We have hour calculators on our trucks. So when we go to a fire, we may only drive 2 miles, but we'll be sitting there and pumping, water the entire time. It might be pumping for an hour or 2 and just sitting there idling. So we do more idling. A lot of wear and tear on our vehicles just because we drive them hard. We drive them, as fast as we can to get to the scene. And then, we don't drive as fast on the way back, thank goodness. And they're very heavy vehicles. So there's a lot of weight there that driving heavy and driving hard, takes a wear and tear on our vehicles. We currently are, having our own maintenance done in-house, and we're transitioning to where we're going to be under the fleet superintendent. We're very excited for that. We're very excited for the vehicle and equipment replacement plan. We do need to have that plan in place. To get a fire truck, when we order it, it can take up to 48 months. And I've heard even longer now to get that engine. These are custom vehicles. We can't just go down to the local dealership and buy a fire truck. It doesn't work that way. And they're very customized because a truck that in Florida can't be a truck that works here in North Dakota. We have different needs, heaters and, different things because of our climate. So a cost of an engine, which is a fire truck that everybody sees without the ladder on top, is actually about $900,000 plus, depending on what we're ordering. And a ladder is upwards, which is the one with the big ladder on the top. That is upwards of $1.5 million. They're very expensive vehicles. Like I said before, there's such a long delay in getting it, so we need to get those ordered and getting them in a timely fashion. We like to have an engine on frontline, which means they are going primarily for 10 years and then put them in the back fleet for about 5. We currently only, so it's getting to be time where we have to start looking at getting a new engine. We're currently looking at buying 2 used engines to kind of fill that gap until we can get something ordered and kind of get that vehicle replacement schedule in line. Was that all the questions you had? I think so.
I think you covered it really well. Thank you very much. So we'll move to Chief John Klug here in the police department. If you can kind of answer some of those same questions, we're looking at your fleet. So miles and maintenance, I'm sure that probably applies more to the police department. Any gaps that you may have in your fleet, any timelines for ordering, and just kind of give us a frame of reference of what you're working with here.
Yeah, so ours is a little bit more geared a little bit more toward the miles and maintenance side of things. Typically, if we stay on about a 5-year, on about a 3 to 4 year rotation, that vehicle is ready to be transitioned, and we'll hit that mile threshold. So typically, we see a vehicle transition out of our patrol fleet at somewhere around 75,000 miles. And much like the fire department, we have a number of different things that we have to consider for the climate that we're in. So all-wheel drive is important, making sure that our vehicles are equipped with the right equipment for all seasons. And then the transition time for the purchasing has been a little bit hit and miss. It's an interesting process due to some of the manufacturing issues that we've had. So we typically have a narrow window of time to place the order, and then they go into manufacture. So from the time we order, it'll usually take us anywhere from 6 months to a year to get them produced to our upfitter to prepare that vehicle and equip it with all of the emergency equipment and get it delivered to the police department here in Minot. So even from the time that the vehicle is delivered, it usually takes us 1 to 2 months to have that vehicle completely equipped. Not as expensive as a fire truck. They run pretty standard to the vehicles that all of us drive. So we use the Ford Explorer or Ford Interceptor, about $50,000 to $55,000, and then another probably $20,000 to $30,000 for the rest of the equipment.
Beautiful, thank you. So, Mr. Schmidt, if we can loop you back in here as well. I appreciate you being on call here and available for us, but if you could just talk a little about what kind of strategies you can lend to our chiefs and what you see happening in the future here with the fleet management position.
We're currently in a position where we're pretty much evaluating everything. We're looking at all the processes and kind of reviewing everything, working on getting an accurate inventory, and just really trying to get my eyes on all the equipment, meeting all the folks involved, including both the chiefs that are on today, and then looking at building a plan that would give us some predictability for when we're going to be purchasing, when we're going to be retiring, how we retire cars, from the initial order process all the way through the end of life cycle.
Beautiful. Thank you very much for being available, and just for our residents, know that our fleet management Superintendent has agreed to be online here if you have any further questions for him. He was also in the Public Works session yesterday, so we appreciate you being here. Thank you for wearing multiple hats. We're going to move to the chat here. Leif has a question about 3rd Street Viaduct. Of course, we all feel it when those arteries are closed. So if either of our chiefs can weigh in on response times, especially related to 3rd Street Bridge being closed.
I can weigh in quickly. So each day, the traffic engineer sends out a daily report of kind of where we're at, and we look at the mapping that is available to our citizens online also. So we're constantly keeping those things in mind, and we're adjusting things as we need to. So the Station 3 area would probably be hitting the north side of it, and the Station 2 area would be hitting the south side of that viaduct. So we're constantly adjusting and being mindful of where we need to go, and educating our personnel who are driving for those things.
Perfect. Anything to add, Chief Klug?
I would just add that since we patrol both sides of town, typically, unless there's a reason to bring units from one side to the other, and they happen to be, maybe that would be the quickest route. But much like Chief Kelly said, we make that adjustment. The officers are aware of what arteries are closed, and dispatch also has that list of the roadways that are closed. So we can adjust pretty quickly, and since we drive a normal vehicle, we don't have to worry about the size, and we're not leaving from a stationary location. So not a lot of impact for our operation.
Okay. So I'm going to let the chiefs leave the screen here for a minute. When we come back to you, we're going to talk personnel. So I'll let you jot down some notes. We're going to bring in our admin staff here. Get everybody up on the screen. Okay, so I'm actually going to end with our city manager, Harold Stewart. I'm going to ask you about City Hall legacy. So I'll let you also jot down some notes. We'll come back to you. I believe that our assistant city manager, Tom Joyce, is online here. One of our council-led aspirations or our values is to be a safe and welcoming community, which certainly pertains to our public safety departments. Those values are also reflected in our citizen satisfaction survey. So if I could have you, Mr. Joyce, talk a little about the importance of community support in public safety.
Thank you, Jennifer. Absolutely. So it just so happens we actually held our problem properties unit this morning, which is an integrated team with not only city emergency services, public responders, building officials, but also First District Health. And that's actually, unfortunately, that's looking at the, it's that 1%. But if that 1% is in your neighborhood, that's an issue, right? So we're working on basically making this the highest quality of life, safe environment we have. And that's really this building excellence as a community. It's with a community. Our mission statement as well is neighbors serving neighbors. So we live here too. So, all of these things are important. It was good working with the council at the retreat last month with the new council, kind of refining these city aspirations. So now we're working collectively as a team. And how do we take these aspirations? How do we take our pride values and really integrate this and get at our mission for budget year 25 and beyond.
Terrific. Thank you. We'll move on to our finance director, Dave Lakefield. He is our numbers guy, of course. If you can talk us through how public safety is funded. Thankfully, we're not sent a bill when we're in need of their help, but they need to be funded somehow. So you could talk us through that.
There are a number of funding sources. There are some permits and fees that are charged throughout the year. Some other funding, state funding that comes through, but the primary funding source for public safety is property taxes from the citizens. Occasionally, if we have big projects, or large purchases like some of the vehicles. We may augment some of that funding with sales tax funds, but the primary funding vehicle is property taxes.
Which brings us back to Mr. Stewart. If you can shed some light on what's happening with City Hall Legacy. Oh, if you could turn your microphone on for me, please.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you.
So you hear me now? Yeah,
Yes.
this has been a conversation of the community and staff and council for going on several years now at this point as we initiated that conversation on using some of that national disaster resiliency funding and community development funding that came in after the flood, the relocation of the dispatch center out of the basement of the Legacy City Hall and the police station over to the Wells Fargo Bank downtown. That's now our new City Hall, the relocation of City Hall. So we've been talking about this for a while. We did have the space needs analysis done last budget. We had, if anyone wants to see that, that was reported on in the presentation of that from EAPC to the council is available and recorded in the recordings of the city council minutes earlier this year. But we continue to talk about that. We've been looking at and analyzing and investing in upgrading our facilities as a city throughout the community and through all of our departments over the last several years, make sure it meets today's needs and tomorrow's needs. One of the final pieces of that is the police station, or the Legacy City Hall that we call it, because that was the former City Hall location there across the street from the library. And so, bringing forward that data and that information from EAPC is a starting point for us to have as a community, gives us some data, some options, and some alternatives to look at, and ultimately figuring out how we provide an efficient space for our police department to operate their day-to-day operations in a way that meets the needs of today through tomorrow. Obviously, the police station is a little bit different than our fire stations because, as the chief just alluded to, a lot of his personnel are mobile. Their vehicles are their mobile offices, so to speak. But there's still a lot of administrative stuff, paperwork, processing of evidence, storing of evidence, locating our SWAT team and our drug task force and all those different things that are components behind the scenes that we need to make sure that we have a space that meets their needs so that they can better serve our citizens going on into the future. So we anticipate once we get the budget approved this year, fiscal year 2025, this fall, we'll begin some of those public conversations. So definitely encourage the citizens to pay attention, to engage and participate in that as staff has this conversation publicly with the council, and we can find the right solution for our police department and for our community going forward.
Terrific. I had it in my intro that I failed to say, but I had found an old interview of yours that I really like to quote from. So to quote you, a building doesn't adapt the same way that a career field does. So that's what we're trying to address here. So thank you very much for that. So for our residents, remember that our admin staff is available for any questions that you want to drop in the chat. They're going to hang out here with us as well. We're going to bring our chiefs back online here. And we're going to talk personnel. So we're going to start with the police department this time around. So I'm going to have you give me an idea of what a shift looks like. Different departments, different specialties, the employment of civilians, maybe how many are on the force in total. Give us a sense of the scale of your operation.
Yeah, so we have, currently we're authorized to have 85 sworn personnel. So 85 officers, and that's everybody from me down to the newest officer. We run it's considered a paramilitary organization. So we have, we have a rank structure. We have a chain of command. Each shift is made up of sergeants and our patrolmen. And they are broken down. They work 10-hour shifts. And we actually did part of the study that was just conducted this past year actually looked at our staffing and the requirements that we have in place. And we have a minimum of 6 officers out at any time. And one of the things that the CPSM study showed us was that our taking a look at our shifts and a need to create or adapt the way we were doing business. So we created a 4th shift, and that we now have, instead of 1 afternoon shift, we have 2 shifts, and it kind of splits up their time so that we have overlap between day shift and afternoon shift, and then overlap between afternoon shift and evening shift, and the same thing between evening and nights. And those overlap times coincide with our busy times of day. So when we have high traffic volume, when we have a higher level of calls for service at bar closing, that type of thing, we have the overlaps built in, so we have a little bit more staff out. So instead of 6, we might have 8 or 10 or 12 out to cover the needs of the community. So we were able to adapt quickly to the information that was provided to us through that study and make those adjustments. Equally as important is our support staff, so our dispatchers, which we're currently, we have 4 open positions in dispatch. We're in the process of hiring 4. There's 17 dispatchers total. And if we were completely staffed, it would make it easier for the staff to get a little bit of break in between. But right now, we use overtime to ensure we have the adequate staffing for the center, which requires that we have at least 2 people on the floor at all times. So, and if we have the 2, we're able to answer the emergency calls. We can handle 911, that type of thing, without any delay, without any issues, unless there were a major event. Then those calls start to overflow into, I guess, the other support staff. So those calls would start to overflow into our records office. They can overflow into other agencies. So they might start to dump into state radio. They might dump over to Grand Forks, who can answer the calls, get the information, and forward that back to us. So there are redundancies in place in the case of a major event as well. So right now, we're down the 4 positions in dispatch. We have 16 openings for police officer, which equates to one of our shifts. So we take those shortages and we spread them out throughout the department so that there's less impact. It doesn't all impact one section. It impacts our investigators. It impacts our day-to-day operation for like community outreach. So we spread that across the organization and decrease the impact to any one part of our organization. And so total, we're authorized to have, I think it's around 110, 115 positions total, sworn and non-sworn staff for the police department.
Terrific. Thank you. We're going to switch over to fire here. Oh. Made you full screen right away. Sorry. So fire happens to be fully staffed currently. So in the fire department, you're looking to maintain that continuity of knowledge and reassigning some tasks for an assistant chief next year. So just talk us through some of the creative solutions that you're looking at, some best ways to support your team, especially on that ladder truck that we had in that photo earlier. We'll find that.
Yeah, the CPSM study came out and there was some recommendations, one being an assistant chief, and that's the one position that we are putting in the next year's budget. It's actually a changing one of the battalion chief positions to an assistant chief to reorganize our upper level department. The other pieces that were recommended, administrative assistant, as well as the 3 firefighters for ladder 5 to bring that staffing from 3-person crew to a 4-person crew. And the FIT, which is the field incident technicians or the battalion chief aides. Those we're currently going to look at long-term, how we can potentially bring those in. We might be looking at reorganizing in the prevention office to be able to create a fire marshal position out of another position in there. We're going to be looking at a SAFER grant, which is assistance to firefighter grant that is from the, and it funds for 3 years, 0 cost to the community for bringing on firefighters. So we're going to be looking at applying for that for probably the 3 firefighters and possibly the field incident technicians. The field incident technicians are going to be able to allow us to do some succession planning for our battalion chiefs and chief officers within the next 5 years. 5 of the 6 chief officers are all going to be retiring, and so we need to really focus on that succession planning for our leadership. We do officer development, but it's officers, captains into the seat to ride along with the battalion chief because they have duties on their own engines. So we need to look at how we're going to be able to pass along that knowledge. The other piece to staffing, as you staffed, we're going to be looking at adjusting some of our task books for the future for our officers to be able to get the correct knowledge that they need to prepare themselves for the future. We have them in place, but there was some great recommendations that came from that study. Quite frankly, this study, it opened a lot of eyes for a lot of us. We're very excited for putting those pieces in place. We've adjusted our strategic plan to add in a lot of those things that were recommended, and we'll be moving forward. Is there anything else that I need to put?
I think you did very well. For our residents, all of the reports from those CPSM studies are on our website, so be sure to refresh those. We have kind of the cliff notes on the graphic here, but there was a lot of information that came out of those studies, so I encourage you to go back and find those. We can link those here as well. So kind of related to personnel, I'm going to come back to Mr. Stewart. The idea of a public safety retirement plan has been floated around, or adopting one here. So if you could just talk us through what's going into those, that decision.
Yeah, so the city of Minot has provided a variety of different retirement plans, most of them self-provided, self-funded. Most states have a state government employee retirement plan. The state of North Dakota does as well. That's what we call PERS, Indy PERS. And in the Indy PERS, right now, I think the city might not transition to that here, I don't know, 5-7 years ago or so, instead of providing our own and participating in that plan. And one of the plans through the North Dakota retirement system is there's a specific retirement plan for public safety officers, so police and fire. A little difference in contribution rates, an earlier retirement date, some of those kinds of things. And that's been a concern that's been brought forward by staff for the few years that I've been here. It creates some competition issues. If you're working for another community in North Dakota and they want to come work in Minot, because we have a different retirement plan, they can't transition at the time they were in that retirement plan over with working with the city of Minot. So sometimes that precludes some people that would be interested in coming to work for Minot from being able to do that with regards to their retirement plan. So we crunched some numbers on that this year. Originally, we looked at potentially transitioning to that in 2026. Depending on what the council does and some decisions they make, they can make that a priority this year and cut some costs out of our recommended budget to make room for that and potentially transition to that here in 2025. But we'll wait and see what the the direction from the council is on that.
Did you have any additions, Harold, on the CPSM studies? Did you have any takeaways that you wanted to highlight?
Just that I think it was a good process for us to go through to verify the things that we're doing right, and some of the areas that we need to start paying attention to either transition to current norms or best practices. I think it was good to verify that where a lot of things we're doing well, but there are some things that we can do to be more efficient. It verified that when it comes to police staffing, I think we've got the right number of people, but maybe there's some things that we can do to use our people and our resources more efficiently, more effectively. And then on the fire side, we had some deficiencies when it came to personnel in maintaining a safe environment while they're working. And I think both chiefs have done a good job of coming up with implementation of those standards in a way that we can make those transitions, but do it in a way that minimizes the financial impact to the community going forward. So I commend both the chiefs in reviewing the findings from that and the recommendations and coming up with good ways to move that forward in a meaningful way.
I'll bring our chiefs back in here. My remaining questions, and I'll just kind of popcorn it for you, had to do with personnel and training, wellness, community outreach. If any of those are big initiatives for you that you would like to talk about what you have coming up in the 2025 year, I'll kind of leave it open to you and maybe leave open the responsible reporter question. And is there anything else that I'm missing that you want to talk about in your departments?
I'll jump in here with just a little bit on training. Is, we have a state requirement for our sworn personnel. We have to have 60 hours of continuing education over the course of 3 years. So considering that we have most of that training is conducted internally, but in order to stay in tune with what's going on and what the trends are and find ways that we might be able to do things better, safer, serve the community better, we send people to across the country to get additional training. Of course, the increases in travel costs, hotel costs have all impacted that, and we've made those adjustments over the years. We make the adjustments from one side between training and travel to try to adjust to that. So the important part is keeping our staff well trained and up to date on the most current trends. Wellness is very important, I think in all fields. But we've determined that there's a lot of some of the studies that are out now show that just the impact of seeing trauma, being under high stress day after day has an impact over time on our officers and staff. And that trickles down into our staff that works in the office as well. So our record staff, they see the videos, they experience, some of the calls that come in, they have to listen to some of that. And so we've done a lot to implement a peer support team, to conduct regular training on the wellness side, to put some extra steps in place to stay more in tune with where our staff are at on day-to-day wellness as well. And then outreach, from time to time, we have some requests to attend different events in the community. We don't have the staffing in outreach. It's one of the areas we had to pull from. We do have a sergeant that still works in outreach, but that time is split with training and outreach. So most of the time we end up paying overtime or trying to grab from another area, the area of the department to cover those events. So, and sometimes we just can't get the staffing in place to attend. So we do the best we can. We're hoping to get through with some adjustments to our hiring. We're hoping to get through, get staff back on board, and increase some of our outreach as well.
Chief Kelly, I had a follow-up for you, unless you wanted to respond to those personnel questions, but I have a follow-up for you. It's related to Leif's question, but also the CPSM study, in that your response times can have impacts on insurance. And I learned that in the CPSM study. So if you could just talk us through that a little bit.
Sure. We are actually very excited, when I say that a little facetiously, we're very excited to have an inspection coming up. That's going to be coming up this fall. The last inspection was actually when we opened Station 4 back in 2017, we had the study done. And it actually reduced our ISO 4. ISO is Insurance Services Office. They come in and they assess risk, and it's only for fire for the most part. They don't look at risk for EMS or risk for hazardous materials or anything. It's just for fire. They look at 3 different components that makes up a good, which is our dispatch center. They look at the fire department and then the water supply. So when they come in, they analyze all those different things, and then they rate us on a 1 to 10 scale, 10 being no fire department, 1 being a very fire response. There is some insurance companies that do use ISO, and some do and some don't. You'll have to call your insurance company, but it impacts your how much you will pay for your insurance. You know, the smaller the number, the less insurance that you have to pay. So it's a great tool for ISO to know the risk of a community, but it's also great, you know, if you make your phone call to your local insurance agent and ask, do you use ISO? Because you might be, you know, shop around a little bit. It's definitely something that commercial buildings, you know, they have high insurance rates. So they definitely look at it when they're looking at relocating to a different area. We've gotten phone calls asking about our insurance rating, companies that are outside of our jurisdiction asking if they can you respond, and so they can use our ISO rating, because we do have a really good ISO rating, but we're hoping to be a 1. We are currently a 2. So as far as response times, I do want to touch on it just a little. Some analysis since opening Station 5. I did an analysis of 2 years of data. Since opening Station 5, we actually met our goal 3 months out of that year since we've opened Station 5. We use a 6-minute, 20-second response time, using the 520, which is 1 minute, 20 seconds for turnout time. That means hurrying up and getting on the truck. And then the 4 minutes of response time in our jurisdiction wasn't achievable. So when we looked at all of our data, we decided that 6 minutes and 20 seconds was going to be our goal, because we have to have something that we can somewhat achieve. Because of our topography and our road system, the 4-minute response time was very difficult. But since opening Station 5, we have seen such a dramatic decrease in our response times. So Station 5 was placed in the perfect spot, and we're very excited to be able to report that.
That is great news. Thank you. And if you could respond to Sean in the chat here, just talking about trucks, it would be nice to have some reserves for sure.
Yeah, it would be nice. The reason we're down reserves is when we replace Station and we replace that engine, that was actually done through a grant where we had to get rid of one. So we opened a station, and then we opened an additional station, and we ordered, and that one took that one, the one that we had ordered for Station 5. So the funding to be able to have 3 or 4 engines. What I'd like to have is at least 2 backup engines. I don't want a lot, because then it's just more maintenance. But we have a great mechanic, and we have a great team to keep our vehicles. But but they're just so very expensive. So that's the reason we don't have 3 or 4.
Sure. Perfect. I'm going to bring in the whole team here again. Ask that reporter question. Is there anything that I'm missing? Is there anything that you'd like to add? Again, for our public as well, get those questions in the chat. We're gonna close up shop here. So anything that I'm missing? If not, then we will let them go. Thank you so much for being here, everyone. We're going to be back at the same time tomorrow for continued 2025 budget chats. Friday is going to feature general government to include airport grants, assessors, a little bit of everyone. So you're certainly welcome to submit those questions in advance so the team can come prepared to us, or just come join us at noon on Friday. So until then, thank you to the team. Thank you, City of Minot, and keep building excellence as a community. Have a wonderful day.